Greetings, this is Dr. Warren Smedley, and today we're going to talk about making the best possible presentation during a case competition, tips and tricks for these case competition presentations. I've spent the last 15, 16, 17 years serving as a presentation style judge at the UAB case competition, and I'm going to share the feedback from those many years of observing teams do well or do poorly in the case competition setting. Talk about tips and tricks. We'll share key learning points. We'll look at some fatal mistakes, things that people do wrong. And then we'll look at handling the questions and answers period. Some special tips for handling questions and answers. This can be one of the most stressful parts of your presentation. Some of the basic principles. First of all, this is a competition. So when you put this together, you're putting it together with the intention of winning the competition, not coming up with some gee whiz, really cool thing, some new thing. Don't be innovative. This is not a great time to be innovative. This is a great time to be intentional about winning. Great content wins competitions. You have to have excellent content. But poor presentation skills will lose a competition, and I've seen that over and over again. Great ideas, but poor presentation skills, and the judges don't pay attention. So, important to focus on the deliverables. You have to have good content. I've seen lots of case competition teams focus on the wrong deliverables or miss deliverables. They do a great presentation, but they've missed the deliverables, or they've not done the right job on the deliverables, or they've done their own deliverables and not focused on what they were asked for. Focus on what you're asked for. This is a competition, and your intention is to win. I've seen many teams not pay close attention to being properly groomed. You should dress professionally, and that would be typically a suit and tie for the gentlemen and a similar kind of formal dress for the women. Also, play to your team members' strengths. If somebody has English as a second language, make sure that you're not asking them to present the most difficult words in your presentation. Give them the easier words to pronounce so that your audience can hear and can understand more clearly what you're presenting. Play to your members' strengths. Fatal mistakes. Great content wins case competitions. Poor presentation skills lose competitions. Seen that over and over again. This is not the time to make some kind of a statement or to try something crazy. I've seen some wonderful ideas, very innovative ideas, but they weren't focused on the deliverables that they were being asked for in the competition. And they didn't progress. They didn't win. They didn't even go up to the final round. Too bad, because they were great ideas, but stick to the core content. Don't be crazy, especially with your dress. Don't decide this is the time to wear that crazy tie or that really flamboyant colored blazer. Try being conservative, being professional. This is a professional competition. Be financially conservative as well, and operationally reasonable. I've seen many teams lose because they recommend multi-million-dollar marketing plans, which just aren't practical. I've also seen teams lose. They had a great idea, but they suggested hiring multiple new people, maybe 10 or 12 new people, to make it work, and that's not practical either. They also had aggressive timelines. Be reasonable in your timelines. Don't present something that's operationally not responsible or achievable. When you practice, please do practice, but don't memorize. When you memorize, it becomes obvious that you've memorized. You can hear it and people just repeating what they've memorized. It sounds monotone. It sounds rehearsed. It sounds over-rehearsed. It does not sound genuine. So practice, yes, but don't memorize word for word. And I've watched teams lose their place when they've memorized. They can't remember where they were, and then they're off and they have to go back and repeat things because it was obvious that they had memorized and lost their place. So don't memorize, practice, yes. If you need to have notes handy, keep notes handy. That's fine. Be yourself, but dress neatly and professionally. Do a quick team check before starting your presentation. I've seen lots of teams come out and begin their presentation and somebody's hair sticking out to the side, or their tie is crooked, or they've got something else that clearly isn't what they would want in terms of their appearance. So right before you walk out as a team, have a little team check, look at each other, and make sure that everybody's tie's straight, everybody's hair straight, that you don't have a big smudge of makeup or something on the side of your face. The best posture: stand straight with the arms at your side. This is probably the hardest thing to do. And there are differences of opinion here as to what the right body posture is. If you go to YouTube, you'll find lots of people recommending lots of different things, but almost universally, everybody recommends standing up straight, plant your feet firmly on the ground. Don't be wandering all over the place. You're going to want to, for the most part, stand still, stand up tall, shoulders up straight, and your back straight, arms at your side. Now, this is one of the most difficult positions. It doesn't feel natural. It feels strange, but it would look something like this. I couldn't find a perfect picture, but arms at the side, shoulders up. This individual is smiling and standing square. You'll see people frequently recommending that you fold your hands in front of your waist. In fact, this picture comes from somebody who was recommending that, but look at the picture closely for a moment. Her body posture is tight. She looks uptight. She looks tense. She looks nervous. Her face looks nervous. And I strongly disagree with that. I think the best possible posture is to stand up straight, arms at your side, and smile. Now, that doesn't mean you can't move, doesn't mean you can't use your hands for gestures. Absolutely, using your hands for gestures is very acceptable and appropriate. But when you move, it has to be purposeful. Don't rock back and forth. Don't wiggle your hands. Don't stick your hands in your pocket and flip your change. Don't do things that communicates, I'm nervous, to people. You're going to be nervous. That's normal. But don't communicate it with your body posture. When you get up, never apologize for being nervous. Now, this doesn't usually happen. I don't usually see teams do this, but it has happened in the past. People say, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I was late because of traffic or because of a plane or weather or something, and they're all flustered. Don't do that. In a competition setting, we don't need to hear that, because most of the time we don't know until you tell us that you're actually nervous. Everybody's going to be nervous. That's normal. Just don't tell us. Don't need to say that. This is a big failing. I see this all the time. Don't use hard to read financial slides. This comes from my doctoral dissertation. I did not use this in a slide, but this is data, and I frequently see people throwing data up on the screen. Now, I want you to quickly see that I've selected April 17th, 2017 as the index date for my research. Can you see that quickly? Probably not. If you feel compelled to put financial data up or other research data up, then pull it out and highlight it when you need to show your audience where to find the information you're talking about. So we selected April 17th, 2017 as the index date. Choose one side of the screen for all team members to stand on. Don't cross back and forth in front of the screen. I see this pretty frequently. Members passing the remote to advance the slides in front of the screen. You'll see a lot of things on YouTube, people standing in front of the screen. That's just bad. So just don't pay attention to that. Don't do it. Pick one side or the other. Stay on that side. If the person who's speaking wants to take a step or two forward, that's great. The other two can stand to the side. with their hands at their side, standing confidently, smiling and listening. Sometimes you'll make a mistake. That's normal. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Acknowledge it and then just move on and forget about it. Uh, I like to say, if you lay an egg, it's okay. Step back, acknowledge, oops, laid an egg, then move on. Now, this is something I recommend to every team after the competition that I sit in and listen to. I recommend this all the time. Begin with an attention getting opener, but nobody does it. It's very rare. When it happens, it's incredibly strong. And I've got an example that I'll show you in just a second. Choose a brief yet compelling statement or opening story. Stories are better, but you can use a startling statement, a quote from a famous person. You could use some facts. You could use some form of evidence, but a story is the best way. Don't start with introductions. Don't start your talk by saying, today we're going to tell you, and then run through your agenda. Just launch in with a compelling attention-getting opener. Think about this. You're one of 7 teams making a presentation throughout the morning. You may be in the middle of the morning. The judges in a case competition are typically overworked. They're stressed. They're concentrating very hard. And if you don't catch their attention, they're going to be just easily distracted because they're getting tired, especially towards the end of the morning. So start with something compelling, a feel-good story that supports your message and grabs your audience's attention. Highlight the quality and commitment of your organization if that's possible to make the story fit with your particular setting or situation. And the story is far more compelling, but any kind of attention-getting opener is better than just launching into, let me introduce my team today. That's dull and boring. Keep it brief. Don't ramble. It shouldn't take more than 90 seconds. About a minute and a half should be all the time you would spend on a compelling attention-getting opener or less. And if you, the best practices are to come back to that story and finish that story at the end of your presentation as a great way to close, or at points during your presentation, you could refer back to that opening story. So here's an example of an attention-getting opener that I used to present a program on better lung cancer screening. So take a listen to this. Today, I'd like to share with you how we're looking to improve our lung cancer screening program. Last August, we had a 67-year-old male come into one of our locations and underwent a lung cancer low-dose CT screening. The patient was a smoker, but asymptomatic and reported feeling well. Upon the exam revealed a 3-millimeter nodule in the right lower lobes, reported as lung RADS category 2. Also coronary artery calcification, an 8-millimeter thyroid nodule, and unfortunately, a 4.1 centimeter ascending aortic aneurysm. The patient was immediately referred to thoracic surgery. That surgeon repaired the aneurysm, preventing a potentially tragic outcome for this patient. We were so proud of our team for getting that patient identified and routed quickly to thoracic surgery so that they could be addressed. This is not something the patient would have known about. They've reported feeling well and having no symptoms. This is the benefit of doing these, one of the benefits of doing this low-dose CT screening, and this was an incidental finding. We're not screening for aneurysms in the aorta. We're screening for lung problems. Okay, let's talk about PowerPoint slides. Spend extra time on the slides. Make sure your slides are good. I've seen a lot of bad slides. We mentioned using financial numbers or hard to read, things that are hard to read. I've also seen a lot of screen colors that are very light and hard to read. And the lighting in a case competition is very unpredictable. You don't know what the room's going to be like. The light may be good, light may be bad, there may be glares, the equipment may be poor, you have no idea. So the higher contrast works much better. Your slides should not make sense without your presentation. So your slides are not the presentation. You're making the presentation. The slides are there to support the presentation. In general, use a 6x6 rule. Doesn't always work, and I understand that. But as much as you can, try to keep your slides to no more than 6 lines and 6 words per line. So it's going to be simple. It's going to be brief, easy to understand, easy to follow. You want it to be as simple and easy to follow as possible. Use high contrasting colors, make them simple. Don't overwhelm people with color. Don't make the color so subtle that it's hard to tell what you're trying to get people to focus on. Use animations to highlight important facts, like I showed previously on the data. Highlight the things that need to be highlighted. Word to the wise, don't cut and paste Excel charts into your program. Now, this, in addition to being hard to read, the way that actually can work is to wind up putting all of the data from the Excel chart into your presentation. Now, it may not make any difference in a case competition, but if you're making a presentation in your healthcare institution and you're pasting an Excel chart in, and then you're sharing that presentation with someone afterwards, all the data is actually traveling with it, and it can slow down your presentation, the mechanics of it. It can also share important information inappropriately. Use PDF handouts to support the details rather than trying to show people on the screen. And if you need some help, I found this particular YouTube channel to be very helpful. PowerPoint presentation tips. Lila Garani, she's very good. You can find her on YouTube. Make sure you have page numbers. A lot of folks leave the page numbers off, and then when it comes time for questions and answers, people don't know how to get back to which slide the judge was asking about. So put page numbers. The judges will often say, can you go back to slide number 12 and answer this question for me? It's much easier to find those slides if you have the pages numbered. A best practice is also to have some kind of timeline or progression showing where you are in your presentation. You can do them across the bottom, something like this, across the very bottom, or down the side or across the top, whatever you prefer. And you would have something like, okay, you would highlight where you are in the presentation. So here we're highlighting introduction, then you would advance to the problem, and et cetera, all the way through your presentation. Have an appendix for all your financial details. You may be asked questions and want to flip to the appendix when you get to the questions and answers. That's a better way of putting your financial details in so that you can answer those questions rather than trying to cram them into your presentation slides. Index your slides at the end. This is a best practice. The really good teams have an index on the questions and answers page that allows them to click on that particular slide number, and it flips them right, takes them right to that particular slide to go back if the judges have a question on it. Let's spend a moment talking about questions and answers, because this, I think, is one of the most nerve-wracking parts of your entire case presentation, because you control all the 20 minutes that you have to give your presentation, or however long it is, until it comes time for questions and answers. At that point, the control leaves your hands and goes to the hands of the judges to ask the questions. And then it feels very scary because you don't feel as in control of the delivery of the information. But we can improve that. So when you start, you've come to the end of your presentation. I like to start this way. Who has the first question? Now, when you start it, you'll say, we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes for questions and answers. Who has the first question? I like to raise my hand to indicate how people should let me know who has a question. So I would raise my hand and say, who has the first question, to sort of role model. Then you listen. When the question comes, it's okay to take time to think about it. A good way to give yourself a little bit of extra time is to repeat or paraphrase the question to make sure you understand it correctly. Gives you a little bit of a chance to think about it. And if it's a particularly difficult question, or you feel that maybe you don't have a really good answer for that particular way the question was asked, paraphrase it in a way that helps you to answer it better. You'll hear this on political debates all the time. Someone will ask a question, the political candidate will repeat the question, but they'll paraphrase it in a way that allows them to answer it to their advantage. And if you paraphrase it and the person asking says yes, then you answer it the way you want to answer it that way. Then you respond. During the questions and answers time, when you're answering people's questions, it's okay to take time to think. Don't feel like you have to answer immediately. Give yourself a second to think. When you're answering, never drill down on a person who's asking the question, whether it's a participant in an audience or whether it's a judge on the panel. And by drill down, I mean focus exclusively on them. I would focus on somebody asked the question, I would answer to the entire audience, the entire panel of judges, the entire audience who's listening to your presentation. Try not to make that individual who asked the question feel uncomfortable for having asked the question. Don't grade questions. And this one can get you in trouble. You hear it all the time. Somebody will ask a question, and the first thing the person responding says is, "That's an excellent question." Well, it's a good, I mean, it's natural for people to want to say that because they're thinking, oh, that's a good question in their own mind. You're on your own mind. You may be thinking that. But what happens is you tell one person that they have an excellent question. If you don't do that same thing for every single person, the person you don't say that to will think, oh, my question wasn't any good because they didn't tell me my question was excellent. So if you just leave that part out and just answer the question, you don't get yourself in trouble for having graded one person's question as excellent and the next person's question as not being excellent. It's okay to say, I don't know. There may be questions that get asked that are very technical or very much into the data, and it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that question, or we didn't go that deep into that question, or we felt that that was something that could be done in a phase 2 implementation. We didn't have enough information to answer that question. It's okay. Don't feel like you have to give a whole lot of fluff if you don't have a good answer. When you're ending your questions and answers time, it's kind of like when you started. We have time for one more question. You stay in control of the process. Who has that final question? Again, I usually raise my hand to indicate how they're to signal me that they have the final question. If there are no questions and you still have time, I always like to recommend having 1 or 2 or 3 questions that you've prepared in advance that you would really like to remind your listeners of. Key points, key issues, things that you think are important. If they're not asked, I would offer your own. And if no one asks a question and you still have time, then you might say something like, in preparing for this, I had anticipated that somebody might be interested in this particular question. So then you go ahead and answer that. It's a great way to get points in, get additional information out during that questions and answers period. And when you're right at the end, if you have time, try to restate your closing points, the important points. And that's it. Best of wishes. Good luck to you in your case presentations.